After exposing Yin Chengkong's betrayal, Chu Feng watched the Cyanwood Mountain gain powerful new allies, while Nangong Longjian and the Compass Immortal joined its ranks as guest elders. But beneath the joy, a darker matter remained. Nangong Longjian was afflicted with an incurable illness and had been preparing to pass his cultivation to Bai Ruochen before his time ran out. Now, with Ruochen refusing to accept a future without her father, Chu Feng must find another path, one that could save the family or bind them together in death. An old winekeeper might have chuckled tonight, for the jianghu has a strange habit of serving victory and sorrow in the same cup. Yin Chengkong's treachery has fallen into the dust. The Cyanwood Mountain stands stronger than ever, and yet one family faces a fate far crueler than any battlefield. Stay close, daoists, for this chapter brings a desperate promise. If life will not allow them to remain together, then even death shall not separate them. The accusation had barely fallen when the atmosphere around the Cyanwood Mountain seemed to tighten like a drawn bowstring. What Chu Feng had just implied was no small matter. He was pointing directly at the assembly master of the Cyanwood Sacred Assembly, a man who had stood at the heart of the Cyanwood Mountain for years.
Chu Feng, do not poison my name with baseless accusations.
Yin Chengkong denied everything at once, anger flashing across his aged face. Yet Chu Feng did not even bother arguing with him. His gaze passed straight over the assembly master and settled upon Bai Ruochen.
Ancestor, if I am not mistaken, the person who summoned you back to the Cyanwood Mountain was Assembly Master Yin Chengkong, correct?
Bai Ruocheng's expression changed instantly. Chu Feng had struck precisely at the hidden knot in his heart. Yin Chengkong, is what Chu Feng said true? The truth was that Yin Chengkong had indeed dispatched the golden flash bird. In his message, he claimed an important matter required Bai Ruocheng's immediate return. That bird was not an ordinary messenger. Bai Ruochen possessed only one, and he had specifically instructed Yin Chengkong to use it only if the Cyanwood Mountain faced a truly serious crisis. So when the golden flash bird reached him, Bai Ruochen believed disaster had struck. He abandoned everything else and rushed back without allowing himself so much as a proper rest. But when he arrived, there was no catastrophe waiting for him. The situation was entirely within Yin Chengkong's ability to handle. That detail mattered enormously. Yin Chengkong had not merely wasted Bai Ruocheng's time. His false urgency had separated the old ancestor from Chu Feng at a critical moment. Whether intentional or not, the result had placed Chu Feng in greater danger and drawn Bai Ruochen back into the Cyanwood Mountain. Bai Ruochen had been furious then. For the sake of answering that summons, he had left Chu Feng behind. Yet he suppressed his anger because Yin Chengkong was not merely a subordinate. He was someone Bai Ruochen had personally nurtured, someone entrusted with the position of assembly master, and someone expected to shoulder the Cyanwood Mountain after Bai Ruochen was gone. Then came Shimen Baiyuan. The Shimen imperial clan's forces descended upon the Cyanwood Mountain, and those connected to Chu Feng were seized. At that moment, Bai Ruochen understood one terrifying fact. Their whereabouts had been sold to the enemy. Yin Chengkong had been the first person to enter his suspicions, yet years of trust immediately fought against that conclusion. Bai Ruochen simply could not believe that the man he had raised and entrusted with the sacred assembly would commit such betrayal. There had also been no decisive evidence. Bai Ruochen therefore kept his suspicions buried. More importantly, Chu Feng's safety mattered far more to him than conducting an interrogation while disaster was still unfolding. After Chu Feng rescued them, Bai Ruochen had already decided that once they returned, he would uncover the traitor. And despite all his reluctance, Yin Chengkong remained the greatest suspect. Now Chu Feng had openly named that very man. For Bai Ruochen, silence was no longer possible. This was no longer merely suspicion against an assembly master. It was a confrontation between decades of personal trust and the cold logic of everything that had happened.
Lord Bailey, please judge this fairly. You know what kind of man I am. I grew up within the Cyanwood Mountain, and it was you who nurtured me. To me, the Cyanwood Mountain is more important than my own life. How could I betray it?
Moisture glimmered in Yin Chengkong's aged eyes. His expression carried such grievance that, for a moment, even Bai Ruochen's hardened anger weakened. That hesitation was understandable. Yin Chengkong had served the Cyanwood Mountain for many years and contributed greatly to its rise. Bai Ruochen would never have granted him authority over the Cyanwood Sacred Assembly otherwise. But Bai Ruochen did not absolve him. Instead, he turned toward Chu Feng. Chu Feng, I know you are not someone who condemns another without reason. If you believe Yin Chengkong is the traitor, then you must possess a reason. Tell me.
Shimen Baiyuan told me that the one who betrayed the Cyanwood Mountain was Yin Chengkong.
Yin Chengkong reacted immediately.
Impossible. Shimen Baiyuan said nothing of the sort. Everyone here witnessed it. And even if he did accuse me, why should anyone believe him? He could simply be lying.
A contemptuous smile appeared on Chu Feng's face.
True, he never announced it publicly. Think about it. If the Xiamen Imperial clan publicly exposed someone who had secretly cooperated with them, what would that say about their own credibility? Afterward, who would ever dare work with them again?
Chu Feng's explanation was brutally convincing. Betrayers survive only while both sides believe secrecy will be honored. For an imperial clan to casually reveal its informants would destroy the very mechanism that allowed future informants to trust them.
However, to show his sincerity in reconciling with me, Shimen Baiyuan gave me a short written message. The name of the traitor is here.
Chu Feng produced a small note. It was no ordinary sheet of paper. Golden brilliance flowed across its surface, while images of a dragon and phoenix adorned it. This was the special golden paper used by the 4 great imperial clans. Upon that dazzling paper stood 3 forceful characters: Yin Chengkong. The faces of Dugu Xingfeng and the other experts of the Cyanwood Mountain darkened with fury as their eyes moved from the note to Yin Chengkong. The paper itself already carried the identity of the 4 great imperial clans. Yet there was something even harder to dismiss: the writing. The characters were not beautiful. Martial cultivators were not necessarily masters of the 4 arts: zither, go, calligraphy, and painting. Elegance of brushwork meant little here. What mattered was the power sealed within each stroke. To the experts present, the cultivation pressure contained in those characters unmistakably resembled the work of a rank 5 martial emperor. That transformed the note from a simple accusation into something far more persuasive. Golden imperial clan paper, combined with handwriting carrying the aura of a rank 5 martial emperor, made Chu Feng's story appear almost impossible to refute.
It was really you?
At last, Yin Chengkong's resistance collapsed. With a heavy thud, the assembly master dropped to his knees before Bai Ruochen.
Lord Bailey, spare me. Please spare me.
There was no more denial. Faced with what appeared to be undeniable evidence, Yin Chengkong confessed through his actions. Bai Ruochen stared at him, and the old ancestor's body began to tremble. His face drained of color. His breathing grew heavy. Though he had already suspected Yin Chengkong, suspicion and confession were 2 entirely different things. So it truly was you. This was perhaps the cruelest wound Yin Chengkong could have inflicted upon Bai Ruochen. An enemy's blade could be resisted. Betrayal from someone personally nurtured was different. It turned years of trust into evidence against one's own judgment.
Lord Bailey, forgive me. I was muddle-headed. I lost my senses. These are all the rewards Shimen Baiyuan gave me. Everything is here, but there was no imperial armament. That promise was nothing but a deception. Take them all, Lord Bailey, please. Give me one more chance.
Yin Chengkong repeatedly kowtowed. He even struck his own face again and again, desperately trying to demonstrate repentance. Bai Ruochen took the cosmos sack containing the rewards. Then his hand moved. A furious slap crashed across Yin Chengkong's face with such force that his features were distorted by the impact. If I spare you, how could I ever face the elders and disciples of the Cyanwood Mountain? The anger in Bai Ruocheng's voice left no room for negotiation. Yin Chengkong had not betrayed merely one man. His actions had endangered the entire mountain and delivered its people into enemy hands.
Lord Bailey.
He tried once more, but Bai Ruocheng's expression had already become cold and resolute. Yin Chengkong finally understood. There would be no second chance.
I know I was wrong. I know my death is deserved. Lord Bailey, kill me.
He closed his eyes and waited for death. Yet before the end came, resentment suddenly surged through him. Yin Chengkong lifted his face toward the vast sky and roared with everything left in his heart.
Shimen Baiyuan, I never imagined you would betray me in the end. You broke your promise, you faithless traitor. Even if I become a ghost, I will not let you escape.
His furious voice rolled across the open sky and traveled toward the distant horizon. Every word revealed how unwilling he was to accept his fate. And here lay the bitter irony. Yin Cheng had betrayed the Cyanwood Mountain for the rewards promised by Shimen Baiyuan, only to discover that even the imperial armament he coveted had never been real. His greed had purchased neither power nor safety, only disgrace. Then, just as everyone believed the matter had reached its end, Chu Feng suddenly spoke.
Don't accuse him without reason.
The words were so unexpected that the air itself seemed to freeze.
Shimen Baiyuan is certainly no good man, but that does not mean you should blame him for something he never did. He did not betray you.
Yin Chengkong's eyes snapped open.
Chu Feng, what did you say?
Confusion spread not only across Yin Chengkong's face, but throughout everyone present. Just moments ago, Chu Feng had used the note as proof that Shimen Baiyuan had exposed the traitor. Now he was saying the exact opposite. Chu Feng lightly played with the golden note between his fingers. A bright smile appeared on his face. Then came the revelation.
I wrote this note myself. Shimen Baiyuan never betrayed you.
For a heartbeat, everything became clear. Chu Feng had never possessed proof. He had built a trap from suspicion, psychology, and Yin Chengkong's own guilty conscience. The golden paper gave credibility. The cultivation power within the handwriting made the lie appear authentic. And once Yin Chengkong believed Shimen Baiyuan had exposed him, fear did the rest. He confessed himself. It was a battle without swords, formations, or martial skills. Chu Feng defeated an experienced assembly master simply by understanding where guilt was weakest. Had Yin Chengkong remained calm and continued denying everything, Chu Feng's fabricated note might never have been enough. But a guilty man often fears evidence more than an innocent man fears accusation. Chu Feng looked at Yin Chengkong with the unmistakable expression of someone watching a fool who had walked into a trap entirely by his own steps. And perhaps that was the most humiliating part of all. Yin Chengkong had survived powerful enemies, risen to command the Cyanwood Sacred Assembly, and bargained with an imperial clan. Yet in the end, 3 characters written on a piece of golden paper were enough to make him condemn himself. Chu Feng did not force the truth out of him. He merely opened the door, and Yin Chengkong rushed through it. For a heartbeat, the entire scene seemed to freeze. Yin Chengkong stared at Chu Feng as though the ground beneath his feet had vanished. Bai Ruochen and the others were equally stunned, because the truth was far more humiliating than anyone had imagined. Chu Feng had never possessed undeniable proof. The note, The certainty in his voice, the pressure he had placed upon Yin Chengkong, everything had been part of a calculated bluff. Yet under that pressure, Yin Chengkong had broken first and personally exposed the secret he had desperately tried to conceal. This was not a contest of cultivation. Chu Feng had defeated an experienced elder with observation, timing and control of fear. Once Yin Chengkong believed the trap was real, his own guilty conscience became the evidence Chu Feng lacked. Humiliation twisted Yin Chengkong's expression. The realization that he had condemned himself with his own mouth drove away what little reason remained.
Chu Feng, you deceitful bastard. Even if I die today, I will drag you down with me.
Mad with rage, Yin Chengkong lunged forward. His target was clear. He wanted Chu Feng dead before anyone could stop him. But he never reached him. A tremendous burst of power struck first. Yin Chengkong's body was destroyed on the spot, leaving behind only the incomplete imperial armament that slipped from his grasp and crashed to the ground. The one who had acted was not Chu Feng. It was Bai Ruochen. Until that moment, Bai Ruochen had still hesitated to personally end Yin Chengkong's life. A traitor he might have been, but he had once belonged to the Cyanwood Mountain. Yet the instant Yin Chengkong attempted to kill Chu Feng, that final trace of tolerance disappeared. For Bai Ruochen, the choice had suddenly become simple. Yin Chengkong had already betrayed the sect once. Attacking Chu Feng proved that he would continue bringing disaster as long as he lived. Mercy at that point would no longer have been kindness. It would have endangered everyone around him. A traitor like him brought this ending upon himself. But Chu Feng, tell me, how did you determine that he was the one? That question drew every gaze toward Chu Feng. The experts of the Cyanwood Mountain watched him closely. Nangong Longjian watched him. The Compass Immortal watched him. Even the king monstrous dragon beasts turned their attention toward the young man. They all wanted to understand how he had uncovered a traitor hidden among his own seniors.
From the beginning, I was watching the reactions of the Cyanwood Mountain seniors. Yin Chengkong's behavior made him the person I suspected most. So I fabricated the note, told a lie, and took a gamble. I simply didn't expect the gamble to strike the mark so cleanly.
Chu Feng spoke lightly, almost as though everything had depended upon luck. The Compass Immortal, who had remained silent for quite some time, suddenly smiled. You make it sound far too simple, boy. A mere gamble? Someone who was merely gambling would not have prepared everything so neatly. You had already formed this plan when you deliberately asked Shimen Baiyuan in front of everyone to reveal the traitor's identity. Isn't that so? Chu Feng merely smiled. He neither confirmed nor denied the accusation, yet that restrained smile was already an answer. The Compass Immortal had seen through the deeper layer of Chu Feng's method. The young man had not simply noticed suspicious behavior and acted impulsively. He had built a situation in which the true traitor would believe exposure was inevitable, then waited for fear to force a mistake. That kind of composure was especially frightening because Chu Feng had conceived it while surrounded by enemies and danger. Bai Ruochen, Nangong Longjian, and the other great experts could not help feeling admiration. They possessed cultivation far beyond Chu Feng's current level. They had crossed countless storms and witnessed innumerable schemes, yet none of them had devised the stratagem Chu Feng had used. And that difference mattered. Chu Feng was no longer frightening, merely because he could fight above his realm. A cultivator with monstrous talent could already shake the younger generation. A cultivator who combined that talent with patience, judgment, and deception was far more difficult for future enemies to handle. Among the Cyanwood Mountain disciples, however, the scene awakened far more complicated emotions. Jianghu, Bai Ruochen, and the others belonged to Chu Feng's generation. Once they had occupied positions above him. Once standing beside Chu Feng as equals had seemed perfectly natural. Now the distance between them was impossible to ignore. The people truly qualified to stand before Chu Feng and converse with him as peers were figures such as Bai Ruochen, Nangong Longjian, and the clan chief of the king monstrous dragon race. For many of his former peers, even finding a place in such a conversation had become difficult. Nothing demonstrated Chu Feng's rise more clearly than this silent change in status. The gap was no longer measured only in cultivation levels. It could be seen in who sought his opinion, who protected him, who respected his judgment, and which great powers were willing to move because of his existence. Those who had remained friendly with Chu Feng could accept the change more easily. But Bai Ruochen and others who had once opposed him could only taste bitterness. Looking at Chu Feng now, their former hostility seemed almost absurd. They could only mock their own ignorance from those earlier days. Then Bai Ruochen raised a hand and tossed a cosmos sack toward Chu Feng. Inside were the treasures and cultivation resources that had originally been offered as rewards for Chu Feng's capture. Chu Feng, take these. Chu Feng did not accept them.
Ancestor, please keep them. The Cyanwood Mountain still has a long road of development ahead. These resources will be more useful in your hands.
The wealth inside the cosmos sack was enormous. For ordinary disciples and elders, it could become an invaluable foundation for cultivation. For Chu Feng himself, however, the situation was different. Those resources could offer some assistance, but they were no longer sufficient to meaningfully increase his cultivation. That decision revealed how drastically Chu Feng's requirements had changed. What counted as a fortune for an entire sect had become only modest assistance to him. Yet rather than hoard it, he chose to turn that wealth into strength for the Cyanwood Mountain as a whole. Chu Feng also understood something else. After everything that had happened today, the Cyanwood Mountain's future would no longer resemble its past. A period of extraordinary growth was approaching. Very well. Bai Ruochen finally accepted Chu Feng's reasoning and kept the cosmos sack. Chu Feng then turned toward Yao Guang.
Senior Yao Guang, may I ask you and your people to escort my ancestor and the others safely back to the Cyanwood Mountain?
Even after the traitor had been eliminated, Chu Feng remained uneasy. The Cyanwood Mountain had only just survived a dangerous crisis. He could not dismiss the possibility that another calamity might strike once everyone separated. You're not returning with us. Chu Feng's gaze shifted toward Nangong Longjian.
I want to go see my friend.
Those few words immediately reminded Dugu Xingfeng and many Cyanwood Mountain elders of someone they had nearly forgotten amid the chaos. Chu Feng was not the only extraordinary disciple who had once appeared within the Cyanwood Mountain. There was also Bai Ruochen. Her personal strength could not be compared with Chu Feng's present achievements, but Bai Ruochen possessed a background that now made every elder reconsider the past. Her father was Nangong Longjian. Long ago, Bai Xian had caused an enormous disturbance within the Cyanwood Mountain and openly declared that very fact. At the time, many people had doubted her words, and most had simply refused to believe them. Now Nangong Longjian himself stood before them. There was nothing left to doubt. Remembering the days when Bai Ruochen had trained among them while they remained ignorant of the terrifying figure behind her, many Cyanwood Mountain elders felt foolish. The Cyanwood Mountain had unknowingly housed two disciples tied to forces far beyond what its elders understood at the time. Looking back, their inability to recognize either Chu Feng's future or Bai Ruochen's background was a reminder of how deceptive appearances could be in the martial world. Bai Ruochen considered Chu Feng's request, then shook his head slightly. Going to see your friend is fine, but there is no need to trouble the king monstrous dragon race with escorting us. We can return on our own.
But Ancestor,
Chu Feng was still reluctant. Recent events had shown just how suddenly danger could descend. Leaving them without powerful protection did not sit easily with him. Bai Ruocheng's expression became calm and resolute. Chu Feng, whatever is destined to arrive will eventually arrive. The countless people of the Cyanwood Mountain cannot spend their entire lives beneath your protection. Fortune is not calamity, and true calamity cannot always be escaped. If the Cyanwood Mountain cannot even withstand trials and hardship by relying upon itself, then even its destruction would not deserve regret. Those words carried the pride of a sect ancestor. Bai Ruochen understood Chu Feng's concern, but he also understood the danger of dependence. Protection could preserve a sect for a time. Only its own strength could allow it to endure for generations. Having said his piece, Bai Ruochen prepared to depart. But before he could leave, Yao Guang suddenly spoke.
Brother Bailey, if you have no objection, my king monstrous dragon race would like to form an alliance with the Cyanwood Mountain.
Bai Ruochen stopped immediately. For an instant, even this experienced ancestor could scarcely conceal his excitement. You truly mean that? The significance was enormous. The king monstrous dragon beasts possessed strength comparable to the 4 great imperial clans. An alliance with such a race was something Bai Ruochen had never seriously imagined the Cyanwood Mountain could obtain. In terms of status, this was not an alliance between equal powers. The Cyanwood Mountain was clearly receiving the greater benefit. A connection of this scale would instantly change how countless forces viewed the sect.
If you agree, then after I return, I will announce our alliance to the world immediately.
Good. Naturally, this old man agrees. Bai Ruochen nodded repeatedly, unable to hide his delight. Yet the surprises were not finished. The Compass Immortal turned toward Bai Ruochen with his familiar smile. Actually, this old man has a somewhat presumptuous request as well. Immortal, please speak. If it is within this old man's ability, I will certainly do everything I can. Bai Ruochen answered without hesitation. Someone of the Compass Immortal's stature could not be treated casually. Then came the request that none of them had expected. I would like to become a guest elder of your Cyanwood Mountain. Would you accept me? Shock swept through the Cyanwood Mountain's people. Even Chu Feng had not expected this. Of course, we could not possibly refuse. For the Compass Immortal to become a guest elder is a blessing for our Cyanwood Mountain. Then it is settled. The atmosphere that had begun with betrayal and death had transformed completely. Bai Ruochen and the others could barely contain their smiles. Ha! 2 great joys have arrived together today. An alliance with the king monstrous dragon race was already enough to shake the martial world. Now the renowned Compass Immortal had voluntarily attached his name to the Cyanwood Mountain as a guest elder. Once news of these 2 developments spread, countless powers would be forced to reconsider the Cyanwood Mountain. From this point onward, attacking the Cyanwood Mountain would no longer mean dealing with a single sect. Any hostile power would have to ask whether its actions might provoke the king monstrous dragon race, the Compass Immortal, or both. That was deterrence created not through the Cyanwood Mountain's own cultivation, but through the relationships surrounding Chu Feng. And everyone from the Cyanwood Mountain understood exactly why these doors had opened. The king monstrous dragon beasts had not suddenly developed affection for their sect. Neither had the Compass Immortal joined, because the Cyanwood Mountain itself had risen to his level. Both decisions were connected to one person. Chu Feng. For a sect, producing one truly heaven-defying disciple could be more valuable than generations of ordinary prosperity. Chu Feng was no longer merely receiving resources and protection from the Cyanwood Mountain. His existence was beginning to repay the sect, on a scale none of its elders could have anticipated. And if these two developments were already enough to transform the Cyanwood Mountain standing, one could only wonder what would happen if yet another legendary expert decided to add his own name to the sect. As though answering that very thought, Nangong Longjian finally spoke. His words immediately drew everyone's attention.
I, Nangong Longjian, cannot make decisions on behalf of the Nangong Imperial clan, but I can speak for myself. Since I cannot offer an alliance in the name of my clan, I shall follow the Compass Immortal's example. I also wish to become a guest elder of the Cyanwood Mountain.
For a brief instant, the entire gathering seemed to fall silent. Bai Ruochen and the others stared at Nangong Longjian in disbelief, while the disciples of the Cyanwood Mountain could scarcely trust their own ears. Nangong Longjian, an expert whose name carried tremendous weight throughout the Holy Land of Martialism, had actually declared that he wished to become a guest elder of their Cyanwood Mountain. Ah! The shock was understandable. Nangong Longjian was no ordinary martial emperor whose allegiance could be measured merely by cultivation rank. His reputation alone possessed enough force to make great powers reconsider whom they dared offend. For the Cyanwood Mountain, gaining such a guest elder was not simply gaining another fighter. It was gaining a deterrent, a name powerful enough to alter the calculations of enemies before a battle even began.
Could it be that you are not willing?
A faint smile appeared on Nangong Longjian's face. For a man who rarely smiled at all, the trace of humor in his words only made the scene feel even more unbelievable. Willing? We're willing, of course, not to mention our Cyanwood Mountain. Even the three palaces would be wild with joy if they could have you as their guest elder. Bai Ruocheng's voice trembled despite his vast experience. It was not weakness of heart. It was because he understood better than almost anyone present exactly how much weight Nangong Longjian's decision carried. In the entire Holy Land of Martialism, that name commanded respect.
Since I've become the Cyanwood Mountain's guest elder, I am now part of the Cyanwood Mountain. If anyone dares to make the Cyanwood Mountain their enemy, they will have made me, Nangong Longjian, their enemy too. Regardless of who they might be, I, Nangong Longjian, will not let them get away with it.
Those words were more valuable than any ceremonial title. Nangong Longjian had not merely agreed to carry the name of guest elder, he had openly tied his own reputation and strength to the Cyanwood Mountain's safety. In the martial world, alliances are often vague until blood must be spilled. Nangong Longjian had removed that uncertainty completely. Anyone striking at the Cyanwood Mountain would now have to calculate the price of facing him as well. Your words are already sufficient. Joy surged through Bai Ruochen. Only moments earlier, the death of Yin Chengkong, killed by his own hand, had weighed heavily upon him. Yet one powerful figure after another was now establishing a relationship with the Cyanwood Mountain. The sudden rise in the sect's fortune overwhelmed much of the sorrow that had occupied his heart. Then Hongqiang stepped forward with a broad smile. Seeing so many great experts joining the Cyanwood Mountain, he too made his intentions known.
With all these grand experts having already become the Cyanwood Mountain's guest elders, Senior Bailey, might you be willing to accept me should I also be willing to become a guest elder of the Cyanwood Mountain?
Brother Hongqiang, what are you saying? If you are willing to become our Cyanwood Mountain's guest elder, it will definitely be our Cyanwood Mountain's fortune. Bai Ruocheng's welcome came without hesitation. Hongqiang was himself a martial emperor, but cultivation alone was not why Bai Ruochen respected him. Hongqiang had repeatedly acted for Chu Feng's sake, and those actions had already earned genuine admiration.
If you really do not mind, I will return to the Cyanwood Mountain together with you. I hope that I will be able to use my power to help the Cyanwood Mountain.
Very well, welcome, welcome, ha! Chu Feng and the others were equally delighted. The Cyanwood Mountain had lost Yin Chengkong, yet in the aftermath it had gained the support of numerous formidable experts. Its position among the 9 powers had changed almost overnight. From this moment onward, the title of strongest among the 9 powers was effectively destined for the Cyanwood Mountain. More importantly, even the 4 great imperial clans could no longer dismiss it casually. The sect's foundations had not suddenly transformed, but the network of power standing behind it had. In the holy land of martialism, that difference could determine whether a force was respected, threatened, or destroyed. Yet while everyone else celebrated, Chu Feng felt an unexpected bitterness rise within his heart when Hong Qiang said that he would return to the Cyanwood Mountain with Bai Ruochen. Chu Feng understood what Hong Qiang's decision truly meant. Hong Qiang had once remained close beside him because Chu Feng needed protection, but now the situation had reversed. Chu Feng had surpassed him, and if danger came, Hong Qiang might need Chu Feng's protection instead. Hong Qiang was not leaving because his concern had diminished. He was leaving because that concern remained. When Chu Feng was weak, Hong Qiang had been willing to risk his life shielding him. Now that Chu Feng had become stronger, Hong Qiang refused to become another burden chained to his path. That quiet decision revealed something more precious than grand declarations of loyalty. It revealed genuine friendship. Chu Feng, guest elders, in that case we shall take our leave. Bai Ruochen and Hong Qiang turned away. Chu Feng and the other upper echelons of the Cyanwood Mountain followed, as did disciples such as Jianghu. But just as the group began to depart, Chu Feng suddenly moved. His figure flashed forward, catching up to Jianghu. Quietly, he placed a sealed letter into her hands.
Senior Sister Jiang, after you all have traveled far, please hand this letter to Ancestor.
Okay.
Jianghu smiled and carefully stored the letter away. Chu Feng did not continue following them. He stopped where he was and watched the figures of the Cyanwood Mountain's people grow smaller and smaller until distance began swallowing them. His emotions were complicated. When Chu Feng had first entered the holy land of martialism, even the southern Cyanwood forest had seemed enormous in his eyes, much less the mighty Cyanwood Mountain. Only a few years had passed, yet those years had been filled with countless experiences, many of them inseparably connected to the Cyanwood Mountain. Figures he had once regarded as distant, imposing existences had gradually been overtaken by him. His terrifying growth had proven itself again and again. And strangely, that realization did not fill him with pride. It left him depressed. Chu Feng had no choice but to continue becoming stronger. His enemies, responsibilities, and ambitions would not allow him to remain where he was. Yet every breakthrough created another distance, not merely between himself and his enemies, but between himself and many of the friends and benefactors who had once walked beside him. The road Chu Feng had chosen was simply too difficult. Many companions who had shared danger, hardship, and victory with him could not continue climbing at the same pace. As his cultivation advanced, some familiar figures were destined to remain farther and farther behind. This is one of the cruelest prices hidden behind extraordinary talent. Outsiders see only the rise, the stronger cultivation, the greater treasures, the enemies defeated one after another. But rapid ascent also changes relationships. People who were once protectors become those who need protection, while companions who once fought shoulder to shoulder may eventually be unable to enter the same battlefield. Chu Feng disliked that truth, but there was nothing he could do to change it. The path toward the summit of martial cultivation was, by its very nature, a lonely road. And perhaps that loneliness will only become sharper as Chu Feng rises further. The stronger he becomes, the fewer people will be capable of standing beside him. Not because loyalty disappears, but because the martial world itself relentlessly separates those whose strength advances at different speeds. After the Cyanwood Mountains group vanished into the distance, Yao Jiaoguang also departed with the king monstrous dragon beasts. Soon, the once crowded area became quiet. Only Chu Feng, Nangong Longjian, and the Compass Immortal remained. Chu Feng turned toward Nangong Longjian. His reason for remaining had nothing to do with visiting Bai Ruochen. Before everyone separated, Nangong Longjian had secretly sent him a voice transmission asking him to stay behind.
Senior Nangong Longjian, what is it that you want me to stay for?
The Compass Immortal had shown no intention of departing either. That alone told Chu Feng that Nangong Longjian had most likely sent him the same private request.
Two sirs, please follow me.
The moment those words fell, Nangong Longjian moved. His body shot forward at astonishing speed. At the same time, a gentle yet powerful energy enveloped Chu Feng and the Compass Immortal, carrying them along with him. The difference in cultivation was immediately evident. Nangong Longjian did not merely travel quickly. He could effortlessly carry two others within his power without disturbing them. Such controlled strength was a reminder that the gap between powerful experts was not measured only by destructive force. Precision and effortless command over one's energy were equally revealing. Meanwhile, far away from them, the people of the Cyanwood Mountain were continuing their journey home under Bai Ruochen's lead. After they had travelled some distance, Jiang suddenly approached Bai Ruochen. She lowered herself into a half-kneeling position in mid-air and respectfully presented the sealed letter Chu Feng had entrusted to her.
Ancestor, this is what Chu Feng wanted me to hand to you.
At the mention of Chu Feng's name, countless gazes immediately shifted toward the letter. Curiosity spread through the group. Everyone wanted to know what Chu Feng had privately left for Bai Ruochen, though none openly voiced the question. Bai Ruochen was equally curious. He accepted the letter. But the instant it entered his hand, light erupted from the sealed object. Before their eyes, the letter began to transform. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared completely, replaced by a cosmos sac resting in Bai Ruochen's palm. Bai Ruochen immediately inspected its contents. His brows tightened slightly. The cosmos sac was filled with treasures. Among them were numerous incomplete imperial armaments, items of enormous value to ordinary experts and even to great organizations. Oh, that Chu Feng! He refused to accept my gift and instead gave me a gift. Bai Ruochen shook his head, but the frown on his face had already softened into a smile. Chu Feng already possessed the heavenly immortal sword. To him, incomplete imperial armaments and many of the other treasures within the cosmos sac no longer held much practical value. To the Cyanwood Mountain, however, they were another matter entirely. This gift showed how Chu Feng's perspective had changed with his strength. Treasures that once might have been priceless to him had become resources better invested in the people and sect behind him. Instead of allowing those items to gather dust, he converted his personal gains into the Cyanwood Mountain's collective strength. Bai Ruochen therefore accepted the cosmos sac without unnecessary refusal.
My lord, exactly what was that?
Du Xingfeng and the others could no longer restrain their curiosity. Look for yourselves. With a sweep of his sleeve, Bai Ruochen released several streaks of light from the cosmos sac. One treasure after another emerged into the air, forming a dazzling display before the entire group. Heavens! The younger disciples were stunned, but even experienced figures such as Du Xingfeng repeatedly gasped in admiration. Mouths hung open as they stared at the priceless treasures floating before them. Between Nangong Longjian's protection, Hong Qiang's decision to join, and Chu Feng's astonishing gift, the Cyanwood Mountain was returning home with far more than victory. Its prestige, deterrence, and material foundations had all risen at once. For a great power, such a combination could influence generations rather than merely one battle. At the same time, Nangong Longjian continued leading Chu Feng and the Compass Immortal across a great distance. Eventually, the three arrived before an enormous mountain range. The sight before them was ominous. The mountains were not covered in ordinary stone or vegetation. The entire range appeared pitch black, stretching into the distance like a vast mass of darkness. From within those black mountains, purple gaseous flames surged toward the heavens. They twisted above the peaks like spectral fire, casting an eerie presence across the landscape. There was no need to release perception or carefully probe the region. A single glance was enough to tell that this was a place filled with danger. Before them stood a mountain range that seemed less like part of the mortal world and more like some forbidden ghostly domain. Purple Flames, Black Mountain, this is a forbidden area. The Compass Immortal stared across the seemingly endless black peaks and purple flames, immediately recognizing the place.
That might be so, but it will not stop Dragon Mark Royal Cloak World Spiritists.
Of course. Not to mention Dragon Mark Royal Cloak World Spiritists, this place will not be able to stop any martial emperor. Merely, other than possessing a frightening pressure, this place does not possess any treasure. Why did you bring us here? His question struck at the mystery immediately. Purple Flames, Black Mountain was dangerous, but to experts of their level, it was not an insurmountable death zone. More importantly, it was not famous for hidden treasures. There seemed to be little reason for Nangong Longjian to deliberately bring two powerful world spiritists here. Nangong Longjian smiled faintly.
What I needed is precisely the pressure of this place.
That answer changed the meaning of their destination completely. Nangong Longjian had not come seeking wealth or opportunity hidden inside the mountains. He had chosen Purple Flames, Black Mountain specifically because of the force that made everyone else avoid it. Whatever he intended to do, the terrifying pressure itself was a necessary part of his plan. Without offering further explanation, Nangong Longjian leapt forward and entered the Purple Flames, Black Mountain. Chu Feng and the Compass Immortal exchanged a glance. Neither yet understood Nangong Longjian's true purpose. And that makes his choice of companions especially intriguing. He had deliberately kept Chu Feng and the Compass Immortal behind, brought them to a forbidden region, and emphasized a pressure that ordinary visitors would consider nothing more than a hazard. Whatever awaited deeper inside, it clearly required abilities connected to these three men, rather than brute strength alone. A moment later, Chu Feng and the Compass Immortal followed. Their figures plunged into the pitch-black mountains beneath the rising purple flames, pursuing Nangong Longjian into the forbidden land to discover what he truly intended to accomplish. Nangong Longjian led the way without hesitation, taking Chu Feng and the Compass Immortal straight toward the deepest region of Purple Flames, Black Mountain. The farther they travelled, the heavier the atmosphere became, as though an invisible mountain were slowly descending upon their shoulders. Chu Feng was already a Dragon Mark Royal Cloak World Spiritist, yet even his powerful senses could clearly detect the terrifying pressure rising from beneath the earth. Every step deeper caused that pressure to intensify. This alone revealed that whatever was hidden beneath Purple Flames Black Mountain was no ordinary secret. If even Chu Feng's spirit senses were being suppressed, the forces gathered in this place had clearly been arranged for something far beyond normal cultivation. At last, Nangong Longjian stopped. He descended toward the ground and entered a secluded cave, with Chu Feng and the Compass Immortal following closely behind. The moment Chu Feng crossed into the cave, a strange medicinal fragrance entered his nose. It was rich, refined, and unmistakably deliberate. From that fragrance alone, Chu Feng immediately understood that somewhere deeper within the cave, someone was tempering their body through the combined power of a spirit formation, precious medicines, and natural treasures. He quickly glanced toward the Compass Immortal. Their eyes met for only an instant, but it was enough. The veteran world spiritist had noticed exactly the same thing.
Senior Longjian, may I ask who is tempering their body deeper inside this cave? Did you bring us here because of that person?
Nangong Longjian looked at Chu Feng with unconcealed admiration. Had the deduction come only from the Compass Immortal, he would not have found it surprising. But Chu Feng was astonishingly young.
As expected of a Dragonmark Royal Cloak World Spiritist, you deduced all of that merely from the fragrance of the medicinal herbs?
This was an important distinction. Chu Feng had not simply obtained the title of Dragonmark Royal Cloak World Spiritist through some fortunate breakthrough. His perception, experience, and ability to read formations had already begun to match the realm he had entered.
It is no wonder Suyan and Ruochen recommended you to me back when you were still only a Snakemark Royal Cloak World Spiritist. Looking at you now, they truly did not recommend the wrong person.
A familiar name immediately surfaced in Chu Feng's mind.
Could it be Ruochen?
Yes, it is precisely my daughter, Bai Ruochen. Go inside. After you meet her, Ruochen will explain everything to you.
Nangong Longjian then turned toward the Compass Immortal.
Compass Immortal, as for you, it would be better if I explained the matter personally.
Very well. Chu Feng continued alone. At the deepest part of the cave, he passed through a world spirit wall and entered a hidden chamber. There, beside an elaborate spirit formation, stood two women whom Chu Feng knew extremely well. One possessed the mature grace and striking beauty of Bai Ruochen. The other carried the cold, pristine elegance of a snow lotus blooming amid endless frost, Bai Ruochen. They had clearly known that Chu Feng was coming. Bai Ruochen had not entered the formation to temper her body, and was instead waiting for him. Chu Feng swept his senses across her and was immediately surprised. Bai Ruochen's cultivation had advanced at astonishing speed. She had already reached rank 3, half-martial emperor. Then his attention shifted toward Bai Ruochen. In the past, her strength had stood so far above his own that he could not even accurately determine her cultivation. Now one glance was enough. Bai Ruochen was currently a rank 8 half-martial emperor. Judging from her progress, Chu Feng estimated that during their days at Cyanwood Mountain, she had most likely been a rank 7 half-martial emperor. The reversal was remarkable. The woman whose cultivation had once seemed impossible for Chu Feng to measure had now been surpassed by him. Not only was his cultivation higher, his true battle power had already entered a realm null. Bai Ruochen could no longer compare with. Chu Feng's journey had quietly overturned the hierarchy between them.
Chu Feng!
The normally reserved Bai Ruochen could not conceal her happiness. She immediately leapt forward and appeared before him, a sweet smile blooming across the face that was so often cold and composed. Bai Ruochen rarely smiled, which only made that moment more striking. After so much separation and turmoil, seeing Chu Feng standing safely before her was enough to break through her usual icy demeanor.
Ruochen!
Chu Feng was equally delighted. In the martial world, where separation could easily become permanent, meeting an old friend again was already something worth cherishing. Bai Ruochen studied him carefully, remembering just how different things had been the last time they had parted.
When we hurriedly separated in the Alliance domain, you were merely a disciple who had been driven out of Cyanwood Mountain. Yet now, you have become an influential figure throughout the Holy Land of Martialism.
Her expression then became serious.
Tell me truthfully, was it really you who released that terrifying Asura evil spirit at the Nangong Imperial clan?
Bai Ruochen also fixed her curious gaze upon Chu Feng. That simple confirmation carried tremendous weight. Bai Ruochen immediately remembered Nangong Longjian's clash with the Asura evil spirit. Even he had suffered injuries before, finally forcing that terrifying existence away. For Bai Ruochen, The shocking part was not merely that Chu Feng had survived such chaos. It was the young man she once knew as a persecuted disciple had become capable of unleashing a force that even Nangong Longjian could not confront without paying a price.
You truly have surpassed everything I imagined. Throughout my life, there have not been many people I genuinely admired. But you, Brat, you have truly won my admiration.
Chu Feng's lips curved into a mischievous smile.
Senior Bai, those words seem to carry some hidden meaning. When you say you admire me, is that supposed to be praise or criticism?
You, Brat, of course it is praise. Why would I belittle you?
Bai Xian raised her hand and smacked Chu Feng on the head. The gesture looked fierce, but Chu Feng merely stood there laughing. There was no real power in the strike. Bai Xian was only putting on an act.
I was only joking. Naturally, I know Senior Bai thinks well of me. Otherwise, why would Senior Longjian have gone to save me?
He went to save you with objectives of his own.
Chu Feng's expression sharpened slightly. He had already suspected as much. What he did not yet know was exactly what Nangong Longjian wanted.
Objectives? What objectives?
Ruochen, you explain it to him.
Bai Suyan smiled and began walking toward the exit. Just before passing through the spirit formation, however, she turned around once more.
There is no need to rush. The two of you have not met for such a long time. Take your time talking. I am sure there are many things you wish to tell one another.
Then her smile grew even more teasing.
Oh, and Chu Feng, talking is fine, but do not start getting too handsy. Her mother might not mind, but you should be careful. Her father may beat you up.
Her amused laughter echoed through the cave as she departed, leaving Chu Feng and Bai Ruochen alone. For a heartbeat, the chamber fell quiet. Then Chu Feng suddenly put on an expression of absolute seriousness.
Ruochen, rest assured, I am definitely not the sort of person your mother described.
Bai Ruochen stared at him for a moment, and then completely failed to restrain herself. Laughter escaped her lips, her eyes narrowing into bright crescents. For someone whose expression was so often cold and restrained, that carefree laughter was especially rare.
You are still exactly the same as before, never serious.
This brief, teasing exchange mattered because the martial world had changed enormously around them, while something between these old companions remained familiar. Chu Feng had become famous across the holy land of martialism, yet before Bai Ruochen, he could still behave like the young man she remembered. But the light-hearted atmosphere did not last. Bai Ruochen soon began explaining the true reason Nangong Longjian had brought Chu Feng here. Nangong Longjian himself was also a world spiritist. However, virtually all of his attention throughout his life had been devoted to martial cultivation. His world spirit techniques were by no means weak, but compared with his extraordinary martial cultivation, they were clearly inferior. His level as a world spiritist was only snake mark royal cloak. Then came the revelation that changed the weight of the entire conversation. Despite Nangong Longjian's exceptional talent and overwhelming cultivation, he suffered from an incurable illness. According to Bai Ruochen, her father had no more than 3 years left to live. For a figure as powerful as Nangong Longjian, this was a cruel contradiction. He possessed strength that could shake the holy land of martialism, yet cultivation alone could not free him from the approaching end of his life. Power could crush enemies, but it could not necessarily defeat fate. Nangong Longjian refused to allow his lifetime of cultivation to vanish with him. During this period, he had therefore been attempting something extremely dangerous, using taboo methods to transfer his cultivation to Bai Ruochen. Passing cultivation from one person to another was not the same as handing over a treasure or teaching a martial skill. Such power had been accumulated through an entire lifetime, and forcing it into another cultivator required formations, compatibility, preparation, and tremendous control. A single mistake could make the inheritance useless, or worse. Long before this reunion, Nangong Longjian had instructed Bai Ruochen and Bai Suyan to leave Purple Flame's Black Mountain and search for the materials required to carry out that transfer. Before they departed, he had made one demand absolutely clear. Regardless of the method they needed to use, they had to obtain the item he required. Eventually, Bai Suyan located that item within the Ascension sect. At the time, Nangong Longjian was undergoing closed-door training. Bai Suyan did not trust outsiders, so she adopted an extraordinary strategy. She pretended to marry the Ascension sect's sect master while secretly searching for an opportunity to seize what Nangong Longjian needed. In the end, her plan succeeded. She obtained the item and brought it away. Looking back, this explained one of the stranger chapters of Bai Suyan's past. What had once appeared to be an unusual marriage was actually connected to Nangong Longjian's desperate preparations for his final years and Bai Ruochen's future. Yet even after every required treasure and material had been gathered, one final obstacle remained. Nangong Longjian could not complete the transfer through his own ability. He needed the assistance of a Dragon Mark Royal Cloak World Spiritist. And not just any Dragon Mark Royal Cloak World Spiritist. The person involved would have access to a matter concerning his cultivation, his daughter, and potentially his final legacy. It had to be someone he could trust. That was why Nangong Longjian had sought the assistance of Chu Feng and the Compass Immortal. However, there was another truth Bai Ruochen made clear. Nangong Longjian's main purpose in travelling to the Xiamen Imperial clan had indeed been to rescue Chu Feng. He had done so because Bai Ruochen and Bai Suyan had personally asked him to save their old friend. What none of them could have anticipated was that when Chu Feng appeared at the Xiamen Imperial clan, he would already have become a Dragon Mark Royal Cloak World Spiritist himself. Fate had turned their situation in an unexpected direction. Nangong Longjian had gone to rescue someone who might later become essential to completing his final plan. The young world spiritist, once recommended by Bai Ruochen, had grown into precisely the level of expert they desperately needed. After hearing Chu Feng describe his own experiences, Bai Ruochen still found the change difficult to believe.
Chu Feng, you truly became a Dragon Mark Royal Cloak World Spiritist?
Chu Feng smiled.
When have I ever deceived you?
He opened his palm. A strand of Dragon Mark spirit power emerged and floated above his hand, its presence serving as undeniable proof.
This is wonderful.
Joy immediately filled Bai Ruochen's face. To her, Chu Feng reaching this realm meant that the greatest obstacle in her father's cultivation transfer might finally be overcome. But that joy lasted only a moment. Bai Ruochen's expression suddenly changed. She reached forward and tightly grasped Chu Feng's hand. Tears began to gather in her eyes.
Chu Feng, I beg you, you must help me.
Chu Feng understood how difficult the inheritance ceremony would be, but he did not hesitate to promise his support.
Passing on someone's cultivation is definitely not simple, but I promise you, I will give everything I have to help.
Bai Ruochen immediately shook her head.
No, that is not what I mean.
Chu Feng paused.
Then what do you want me to do?
Bai Ruochen's composure finally cracked. The cultivation her father wanted to give her, the power that countless cultivators might have considered an unbelievable fortune, was not what she truly desired.
I do not want my father's cultivation. I want him to remain beside me. Chu Feng, I beg you, please cure my father's illness.
And there lay the true conflict hidden beneath Nangong Longjian's carefully prepared inheritance. To him, passing down his cultivation was a way to ensure that decades of strength would not disappear after his death. To Bai Ruochen, however, that same inheritance represented something entirely different, the acceptance that her father was going to die. The irony was painful. Bai Ruochen was being offered a fortune capable of transforming her future, yet she would gladly abandon that fortune for the chance to keep her father alive. In a world where cultivators constantly fought for power, her wish was astonishingly simple. She wanted family, not inheritance. And now the burden had fallen onto Chu Feng. The question was no longer whether he could help Nangong Longjian transfer his cultivation. The far more difficult question was whether his Dragonmark world spirit techniques could accomplish what everyone else had already declared impossible, and seize Nangong Longjian back from an incurable fate. Outside the hidden cave, the atmosphere should have been calm, yet Bai Ruochen's sudden request struck Chu Feng harder than any unexpected attack. She was not asking for treasure, inheritance, or cultivation resources. She wanted him to save her father.
Cure your father's illness.
For once, Bai Ruochen's usual composure shattered completely. Tears glimmered across her face, and behind those tears was a fear far heavier than any enemy she had ever faced. Her family had only just been reunited. She could not bear the thought of losing that fragile happiness almost as soon as she had obtained it.
Chu Feng, I beg you, our family has finally reunited. I don't want the day to come when only Mother and I remain.
Chu Feng did not know what strange illness plagued Nangong Longjian, nor did he dare promise a miracle, but he could not ignore Bai Ruochen's plea.
I don't yet know what kind of incurable illness your father suffers from, but I'm willing to use everything I have and attempt to cure him.
With that decision made, Chu Feng walked out of the cave, Bai Ruochen following close behind. Outside waited Nangong Longjian, Bai Suyan, and the Compass Immortal. From the way the three stood together, Chu Feng immediately understood that Nangong Longjian had already explained his predicament to the Compass Immortal. The Compass Immortal turned toward Chu Feng. What they were discussing was not an ordinary healing problem. It concerned something cultivators had dreamed of across countless generations, passing one person's accumulated cultivation directly to a descendant. Little friend Chu Feng, what is your opinion regarding the inheritance of one's cultivation? Chu Feng considered the question carefully. Passing on martial knowledge was common. Passing on techniques and treasures was possible. But transferring the fruits of an expert's cultivation was another matter entirely.
That is one of the most difficult things imaginable. Since ancient times, what powerful expert has not wished to leave their cultivation to their descendants? Yet almost none succeeded. As far as I know, only Emperor Gong, Gong Wuming, Emperor Huang, Huang Fushou, and the Beast Emperor, the Black Dragon King, managed to accomplish something close to it.
The important point was hidden inside Chu Feng's wording. Even legendary overlords had only come close. In the world of cultivation, power is not merely energy stored inside the body. It is intertwined with one's foundation, understanding, bloodline, source energy, and the path that produced that strength. Taking the achievement of one lifetime and placing it perfectly into another person is far more dangerous than simply transferring martial power. The Compass Immortal's interest immediately sharpened. Even Nangong Longjian, Bai Suyan, and Bai Ruochen looked surprised. They had not known the secrets surrounding those three ancient overlords and their successors. There were truly people who succeeded in passing their power to later generations. Little friend Chu Feng, your knowledge is broader than I expected. Tell us. Chu Feng looked at those gathered around him. These were people he trusted, but the information he carried concerned the futures of three friends. Such secrets could cause enormous waves if they spread throughout the holy land of martialism.
There are no outsiders here, so I won't hide it from you. However, I hope everyone will keep what I say secret. the successors of those three overlords are all my friends.
Chu Feng then revealed what he knew. Emperor Gong's inheritance had found its successor. Emperor Huang's power had also been inherited. Even the Beast Emperor, the legendary Black Dragon King, had left his power behind for a later generation. More astonishing still, these successors were not empty titles. They had truly received portions of the Overlord's strength. The Compass Immortal could not conceal his amazement. In his eyes, these were not three isolated inheritances. They were signs that the age itself was changing. What an extraordinary era! Emperor Gong and Emperor Huang's successors have appeared, and now even the Beast Emperor's successor has emerged. And they are not merely successors in name. They truly received the strength of those three overlords. No wonder Jiang Qianyi's cultivation was able to advance at such terrifying speed. Nangong Longjian was equally surprised by the identity of the Beast Emperor. The Black Dragon King had not been some mysterious, solitary beast. He had originated from the King monstrous dragon race, and now the princess of that very race had obtained his inheritance.
I never imagined the Beast Emperor, the Black Dragon King, came from the King monstrous dragon race. Now that their princess has inherited his power, that race is destined to rise.
Nangong Longjian's judgment was simple but sharp. In the martial world, one supreme successor can alter the fate of an entire clan. An overlord inheritance does not merely strengthen one cultivator. It gives a faction hope, prestige, and potentially a future expert capable of suppressing entire generations. Bai Xian, however, noticed another thread connecting all three inheritances. Her gaze settled upon Chu Feng, and a knowing smile appeared on her face.
The most remarkable thing is that all three successors are connected to you. I suspect little friend Chu Feng contributed quite a bit to their successful inheritances, didn't you?
Chu Feng answered, only with a slightly mischievous laugh. He did not boast, yet there was no denying the truth. His involvement had indeed played an important role in allowing all three of his friends to obtain those inheritances. And this small reaction says much about Chu Feng's position in the younger generation. He was no longer merely collecting opportunities for himself. Wherever he went, the fortunes of the people around him were changing as well. Three separate overlord inheritances, three friends, and Chu Feng somehow stood at the intersection of all of them. That is the kind of influence that quietly turns a rising genius into the center of an era. The conversation, however, soon returned to the desperate matter before them. Nangong Longjian faced Chu Feng and clasped his fists with solemn respect.
Little friend Chu Feng, I must trouble you in the Compass Immortal. If the two of you can help me pass my cultivation to Ruochen, I will agree to anything you require.
Those words carried enormous weight. Nangong Longjian was no ordinary cultivator seeking aid from a senior. He was a renowned expert, yet now he was humbling himself before Chu Feng, a member of the younger generation. The reason was obvious. His concern was not pride, reputation, or even the cultivation he had spent his life accumulating. His concern was Bai Ruochen. Chu Feng could see just how deeply Nangong Longjian wanted to leave his power behind for his daughter. Yet sincerity could not change the difficulty of the task.
Senior Longjian, it isn't that I refuse to help you. I have only recently become a Dragon Mark Royal World Spiritist. I haven't fully familiarized myself with this level of power. Something like this is truly too difficult for me. Even Emperor Huang, Emperor Gong, and the Beast Emperor could not make their successors instantly reach the heights they once possessed. Their successors still need to cultivate and improve step by step. So although they successfully passed down their power, it wasn't a perfect transfer. Only a portion of their strength truly reached the later generation. Those three were overlords of their respective eras, and their world spirit techniques were incomparable in their time. If even they could only achieve that much, then for me to accomplish what Senior asks is truthfully extremely difficult.
Chu Feng shook his head. He was not trying to escape responsibility. He was giving Nangong Longjian the truth. Although Chu Feng possessed many long-lost formations from the Nine Spirits Divine diagram, even with those techniques, his confidence in successfully transferring Nangong Longjian's cultivation was only around 30%. 30% was not a gamble involving a treasure or a cultivation opportunity. This was Nangong Longjian's lifetime cultivation and Bai Ruochen's future. A failed inheritance could carry consequences far beyond simply wasting power. That is why Chu Feng's hesitation was not cowardice. It was the caution of a world spiritist who understood precisely how dangerous an imperfect formation could become. The Compass Immortal supported Chu Feng's judgment. Even with his own immense experience, he saw no reliable path. Little friend Chu Feng is correct. Nangong Longjian, it is not that this old man is unwilling to help. Passing down cultivation is simply too difficult. Even if you gathered every Dragonmark Royal Cloak world spiritist in the Holy Land of Martialism, success might still be impossible. This old man truly has no reliable way to help you. For several breaths, Nangong Longjian stood motionless. Then the proud expert made a decision that stunned everyone present. He dropped to his knees.
Little friend Chu Feng, Compass Immortal, please help me, no matter what it takes. As long as my daughter is not harmed, I am willing to do anything.
Chu Feng's expression changed instantly.
Senior, what are you doing?
Even the Compass Immortal was shaken. He hurried forward to raise Nangong Longjian. Get up quickly, we cannot accept this. Nangong Longjian was a man who would not bend his knees to heaven or earth. Yet for Bai Ruochen, dignity had become meaningless. He would kneel before men younger than himself, surrender pride, and offer anything within his possession if it could secure his daughter's future. This is where the inheritance problem reveals its true emotional core. Nangong Longjian was not obsessed with preserving his legacy. He believed his own life was running out, and transferring his cultivation was the only way he knew to continue protecting his wife and daughter after death. For him, power had stopped being a symbol of status. It had become the final shield a father could leave behind. Bai Ruochen could no longer endure the sight. Tears poured freely as she looked at the father she had only recently regained.
Father, please don't do this. I don't want your power. I only want you to keep living.
Bai Ruochen, Bai Suyan, Chu Feng, and the Compass Immortal all tried to make Nangong Longjian rise, but the powerful expert refused to move. His resolve was harder than iron. Then Chu Feng's thoughts shifted. If passing on the cultivation was merely Nangong Longjian's answer to approaching death, perhaps the true problem was not the inheritance at all.
Senior, please stand. I may have a method that can solve both problems.
Nangong Longjian's gaze immediately changed.
Little friend Chu Feng, is that true?
Yes.
Only then did Nangong Longjian rise. The moment he stood, he pressed Chu Feng for the answer.
What method?
Senior wishes to pass your cultivation to Ruochen because you want your strength to continue protecting Ruochen and her mother. But if Senior's illness can be cured, then you can protect them yourself. In that case, there would be no reason to transfer your cultivation to Ruochen at all, would there?
Chu Feng had cut directly through the problem. Instead of attempting an almost impossible transfer of cultivation, remove the reason Nangong Longjian believed such a transfer was necessary. It was the cleaner strategy, the safer strategy, and if successful, the only outcome in which Bai Ruochen could keep both her father and her own path of cultivation. But Nangong Longjian did not show hope. Instead, a helpless laugh escaped him. To him, Chu Feng's proposal sounded reasonable, only because Chu Feng did not yet understand the illness.
Heh. Little friend Chu Feng, no one understands my body better than I do. This illness cannot be treated. Even the weaponry refinement immortal failed to cure it.
Chu Feng did not accept that conclusion so easily.
If we don't try, how can we know?
The Compass Immortal agreed. The weaponry refinement immortal possessed extraordinary world spirit techniques, but his greatest expertise lay in refining weapons. Healing strange illnesses required a different kind of knowledge. Little friend Chu Feng is right. The weaponry refinement immortal's world spirit techniques are exceptional, but his specialty is weaponry refinement. This old man, though lacking in talent, has spent time studying congenital diseases and various incurable illnesses. If you do not object, allow me to examine you. Nangong Longjian frowned. Rather than relief, hesitation appeared in his eyes. There was clearly another problem he had not yet revealed.
Senior, is there some difficulty?
Nangong Longjian finally explained the frightening nature of his condition. Under normal circumstances, the illness could not even be detected. It was concealed inside his dantian and intertwined with his source energy.
My illness cannot normally be discovered. It is hidden within my dantian and mixed together with my source energy. Unless I personally use my power to fully activate it, others cannot observe it. But once I activate it, the illness will torment me. The pain itself is not the greatest problem. The problem is that after it erupts, I cannot return to normal for some time. I fear I may not have enough time.
That revelation changed the calculation again. The illness was not merely difficult to cure. It was difficult even to examine. Nangong Longjian had to deliberately awaken the very condition threatening his life before Chu Feng and the Compass Immortal could study it. In other words, diagnosis itself carried a price. Before Nangong Longjian could use the danger as a reason to refuse, Bai Ruochen suddenly stepped forward and knelt before him. Her face was wet with tears, but there was no weakness in her eyes now. What remained was pure determination.
Father, if you die, your daughter will not continue living either.
The words pierced Nangong Longjian more deeply than any blade. The expert who had faced countless dangers was suddenly helpless before his own daughter's resolve. Unable to persuade Bai Ruochen himself, Nangong Longjian turned toward Bai Suyan. His glance carried an obvious plea. He wanted her to stop their daughter from making such a choice. But Bai Suyan did not rebuke Bai Ruochen. Instead, she met Nangong Lan's gaze with a quiet smile. There was no panic within it, only the calm of someone who had already decided what mattered more than life itself.
Longjian, I feel the same as Ruochen. If our family cannot share this life together, then we will simply reunite together in death.
At that moment, Nangong Longjian finally faced the consequence of the choice he had been trying to make alone. He wanted to sacrifice himself so his family could survive, yet neither Bai Ruochen nor Bai Suyan wanted a future purchased with his death. To him, dying for them was protection. To them, surviving without him was not the life they wanted. And this may be the real turning point, hidden beneath the talk of inheritances and world spirit techniques. Nangong Longjian had already prepared himself to die, but his wife and daughter were forcing him to consider something far harder, risking hope. Whether Chu Feng and the Compass Immortal can truly uncover a cure remains uncertain, but after those words, refusing to try may have become impossible.